Friends, family, fans of the Rainmaker world, we are back again. Me and my main man, Joel, aka Draft Master Flex, in the house with me. We are just coming out of a hot and sexy Masters week. It was a fun one for myself. I had a good week in the Rainmaker world. Unfortunately, Cam Young and co couldn't quite come together for me. I'm getting some reverb here.
You sound clear to me.
Oh, I got my own YouTube channel up and I'm listening to myself. So that was a bit of wow. That was something that I'm not going to ever have happen to me again. Anyway, Joel, how are you doing?
I'm good. I will change one thing you said. You said it was a hot and sexy Masters week. I'm going to say it was a cold and wet Masters week.
Perspectives. I totally agree with you. Actually, it was so brutal to watch those guys play in those conditions. And I honestly believe Cam Young has a shot at winning this thing if it doesn't turn into a swamp. I think his swing is just too powerful and explosive to deal with that many variables and wet and moisture. You know, like Jon Rahm's game somehow still translates to all of that. And man, dude, to come from the wrong side of the wave, to just walk behind the human traffic cones of Cantley and Sam Bennett for a full round, he put in a very deserving Masters performance, Joel.
Listen, Jon Rahm, this win, I mean, listen, it wasn't a surprise. We knew Jon Rahm was great. This win now solidifies him in the, record books, whatever you want. Like, there's no question mark. Like, Rahm is now going to be a generational golfer, even if his career, which I don't think it will at all, starts to fall off. He's got his 2 majors. He's got his Masters win. He had a dominant stretch of at least 3 years. Like, Jon Rahm is in now. He is one of the greats. And if this goes on for 5 to 10 more years, then who knows where that goes? So Rahm's unreal. And like, this isn't necessarily a course that I would consider a good fit for him, right? Like, this isn't a course you'd look at and be like, oh, Rahm should tear that course. Like, it's not. And like you said, he had the bad wave. He still went out and won the tournament. So listen, I love Rahm. I'm happy for him. Now it's kind of a matter of what do we do with him from here?
I know. And Sweet Spot DFS is in the house here, and he knows that I'm not the biggest fan of Jon Rahm, but he made me some serious bucks. I had Jon Rahm as my captain in a lot of lineups. I don't know what we're going to do with him, Joel, but I just want to mention as well, like, it's so impressive what he's done because he's been known as like a one-trick pony, hit that hard butter fade. And then now around Augusta, you need to hit some draws. And have you noticed like his last few tournaments, his off the tee stuff? I know it's been Florida swing too, but his off the tee is kind of like gone down a little bit. He's not gaining as much as he used to. And I wonder if he's been working on a draw for Augusta, because I've never seen him hit a ropey draw as often and as consistently as he did around Augusta, because I think you have to hit that draw. He couldn't have got to the green on 13 in the final round if he doesn't absolutely laser a draw around that corner. Because with his fade, it doesn't work, like that hole in particular. And he just hit a perfect draw on that hole. And I think he's got a draw in his bag now, which is even scarier than hitting a one-trick pony power fade.
That's a good point. That might be the case. That he was working on it, which is maybe why you saw a slight decline. But even a slight decline in Jon Rahm's driver is still better than majority of the field that he's playing against. Yeah. So, I mean, the guy just crushes the ball. And I was explaining this to my brother when we were watching Sunday. My brother's not quite as into golf as I am, so I'm trying to explain like high level. And what I was saying is, what's unbelievable is there's a lot of guys. We've seen people match his power. We've seen other guys be able to hit the ball that far. I've never seen his power matched with the consistency and accuracy that I've seen of Rahm. Like, he'll put it over 300 in the fairway like 80% of the time, which these guys who bomb it are usually, like we've seen Bryson. Bryson's all over the place. Like, when he gets a hot day, he's unreal, but usually, he has those bad days where he's spraying it and he gets himself in trouble. Rahm rarely gets himself in trouble. He's got control of that thing, which is what makes it so impressive.
Yeah, dude. It's just, you just know he's going to get to 12 under par because he's going to, on average, go -3 around Augusta every single round. Like, that's just the thing he does. It's so consistent. It's so predictable and so reliable. So congrats to Jon Rahm. What a great week for him. And Brooks, man, got to shout out Brooks a little bit. The guy came in swinging. And Phil, like, holy cow, like, what? Where did out of left field, Phil? Lefty out of left field.
I said jokingly last week on this show, I said, imagine if we get a Tiger and Phil fight.
Yes.
It was actually, I mean, at least on Phil's side, it was actually closer. And I was like being sarcastic. And Phil ended up in second place.
I could not believe what he did, man. It was insane performance. The first few rounds, it was all with the putter. And then as the week went on, he just started finding his form and in the groove. It was vintage Phil stuff. And then we had Spieth with him. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you heard. So after round, I don't remember if it was round 2 or 3, that he did an interview, Phil. And he said in the interview, he's like, listen, the way I'm hitting the ball, I am due to go nuclear. He goes, I'm hitting the ball in a way, the way I'm playing, one of those big days is coming. It's just, I haven't been scoring the way I would have, the way I've been playing, but it's coming. And I looked at him like, this guy's delusional. I'm like, he's coming out of nowhere. There's no way he's going. And then literally on Sunday it happened. He came out and I was like, wow, he was right. Should have listened to him.
He was incredible. But also he's so self-confident all the time. And you never know if he's talking shit or if he's actually like speaking the truth. I'm going to play good golf here soon, like coffee beans and Gatorade or whatever. And I'm going to play good. But turns out he actually backed it up and props to him. It was really impressive. And it was such a fun Masters. I never had a chance of winning anything from an outright perspective, but it was just so fun to watch those guys battle at it.
I will say the Masters is always fun, and it definitely was entertaining. And I loved seeing the Live guy battle with Rom. Like there was so much drama. It was all great. The one thing that was disappointing was how we had 2 days of weather delays, which caused for it was really hard to bet matchups each day because we didn't really. There'd be like a 20-minute window between rounds before you could even put a bet in. It made Showdown more difficult because you get very small windows to place things. So that was a little frustrating for the Masters week where you really wanted to be dialed in, but entertaining it was.
Yeah. I only wrote one Showdown article over the whole week because that was Thursday night, because the rest of it the next round started the next day. And you can't write a Showdown article when half the guys are still on the field. You know what the ownership's going to do. You don't know who's playing well, who's going to play bad. So it was just all about the Discord there at rotoballer.com. So speaking of, got to chat about rotoballer.com real quick before we get into the Rainmaker world. Go over to rotoballer.com, use code Maniac for 10% off all our premium stuff. Spencer and myself are doing great things there. Joe's also out there with his main articles, the Core 4 and the Horse for Course. Spencer obviously just, oh my God, that guy's just such a freak when it comes to golf betting. He's just so reliable. He's like the John Rahm of golf betting. It's just, you just know he's going to be over a month. He's just going to be pumping out profit every month. And that's what you're going to get from rotoballer.com. So go over there, use our premium packages, use up all our tools. We're in the Discord, all that jazz. Go get yourself 10% off using code Maniac at rotoballer.com today. So that's what's cooking over there. Joel, let's talk some Rainmakers, man.
I'm excited.
You said we were chatting in the lobby earlier, had a bit of a okay week, nothing too sexy, but after taking down 15K, it's okay to have a week like this. How did your week go?
So from the Rainmaker side, overall disappointed, I would say, in my week. Yeah. And disappointed because I had a lot of Rahm, right? And I still didn't win much, which is my own fault because I'm greedy and I'm going for the top-heavy biggest prizes instead of playing more conservatively and going for wins. And my greediness caused me to not cash. And granted, I had lined up with Zalatoris in it that killed me. I had some JT that really hurt. So that honestly, that kind of stuff will burn you. I wasn't perfect this week, but had I played my lineups, let's say more conservatively like you did, when I put them in, some of these like top 250, paid 100, I probably still would have at least cashed and came out with something. So I learned my lesson and got to get better at context selection moving forward.
It is interesting, and it's still something that we're going to try and help and share our thoughts about how to pick the right contest. But at this point, I'm pretty much just throwing my 3 medium level lineups into that Rainmaker, 3 entry max bankroll builder, So I actually somehow managed to, instead of submitting it into a bankroll builder, I only had 2 instead of 3, and I sent a third one into another bigger contest. But I managed to cash 2 of my bankroll builders. And I had a John Rahm, Tony Finau, Max Homa, Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Young lineup with John Rahm as my captain. And it finished 14th. And it was not too far off from getting pretty close to the mix. We were just chatting before we got on here. Max Homer with a 78 on Sunday, doing some serious damage for me. It wasn't the bad damage, not the good kind of damage. He just absolutely pooped the bed. And Tony Finau as well. Just Tony Finau went 74, 73, 72 over the last 3 rounds of the tournament. And that's the thing with him is he's just not giving you that upside that you're looking for. Like a T26 again from Tony Finau.
I'm at a point with Finau, and I think I may have said this last week. I don't like playing Finau in the loaded fields, right? Because he's usually priced up in the elite tier, and even when he plays well, right, it's what, 9th, 10th, right? Like Finau's not really getting those top 5s, right? Especially in the loaded fields. So, and you're paying for him, right? You're not getting. Hey, listen, if Tony Finau was 7,700, that's a whole other story. Like that's my value play. Let's go after him. But you got to play Tony Finau as at worst your second best guy. And if you're going to do that, he doesn't get you those types of results. So I think I'm gonna. But then what's going to happen is then the 3M Open's going to come, and it's going to be Tony Finau, and the next best player in the field is going to be Kirk. And then then I'm going to play him, right? But until we get a tournament like that, I think for now I'm going off Finau.
I have a question for you though, based off this Finau thing, because he played the Mexico Open last year. It was Rahm and Finau, and I feel like I locked in Rahm in DFS and pretty much went 50% Finau and tried to just figure out the rest. And I still ended up losing money that week because it was so difficult to figure out who the other 4 guys would be. Now, from a ReignMakers perspective, he hasn't committed to the Mexico Open. Do you think maybe he might be going back there? Because I know Rahm, like we've discussed already, he's committed to the Mexico Open. And I'm all about that. I'm loading up on the Rahm cards because that price tag is going to be ridiculous in the week of the Mexico Open. If it's him and Tony, Tony's price could double quite easily because he's only sitting at as a rare right now, I think about $80, $90. So, in a week of where just Jon Rahm and Tony Finau are playing in Mexico, I could see Tony pushing $200.
That would be a good spot for Tony there at that course. I do think Rahm just likes to go to vacation in Mexico. So I'll just go play some golf and my family can enjoy Mexico. Yeah, I'll win the tournament. Be a nice profitable vacation for me. I think that's the type of tournament, even with Rahm, right? Like I think the point is this field even here. I don't think Finau's even in the field here at RBC, but is he? Do you know?
I think he is.
Okay.
I think he is.
This is not the type of field I want to play Finau, right? This is a loaded field where there's a lot of depth. This is not the type of field I'd want to go after. But again, Mexico, if it's going to be like Rahm, Finau, and then I don't know, I'm making this up, but Ricky Fowler is the next biggest guy, then that's the spot where he can, he makes a lot of sense. He's definitely going to get you a good finishing position. And it's not even that the hard thing to describe about Tony Finau. It's not even that his game's in terrible form. He's not in terrible form. He just doesn't have anything where he's not excelling so much in anything that's going to get him to the top. And so it's he's playing fine, but in DFS, we can't miss. One player misses, it's really hard to win a lot of money. You have to be really accurate. And so that's where Finau's mediocre play sometimes really can kill you.
Yeah, it's the problem with him because I feel like he's always just in second gear. But his second gear cruises down the highway just fine. It's minimum speed limit, doing his thing. And it's frustrating because you're always just waiting for him to just step on the gas pedal and it just never comes. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with Finau. Maybe he's one of those guys that you just constantly plug into your bankroll builders because he's going to be making the cut. He's going to just be, him and Sung Jae Im. You kind of just put those 2 guys in as your bankroll builder studs. Buy them for cheap because they both in the rare market right now less than $90 a pop if you want to just go get a cheap rare. And to me, that seems underpriced for Tony. I don't know if that's exactly, he doesn't give you the upside of a $150 card, but I think as a $90 in the rare market, I think he's totally fine.
I agree. I think that's a fair price. One exercise I would do when you think about buying a card like Tony, right? It's take 3 guys that you think you would equal to Tony, maybe in that same tier range, look at their price, right? If they're all
Yes.
going for 120 and you can get Tony for 90, then it probably makes sense to go get Tony, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you put three guys in the tier and they're all going for 80 and Tony's 90, then you probably don't want to go after Tony. So that's how I would do it. And it's your own personal preference. Some people might like Tony more than I do. And if that's the case, then you can make that purchase based on your rating of Tony and where you have him at, right? Like if I were to, I'm just going to use this as an example as the first guys that come to my head.
Yeah.
If I was to compare Tony to, let's say, Xander Schauffele and Victor Hovland, right? Let's say that's a tier. I would rather have Schauffele and Hovland than they're ahead of them, but let's put that as the tier of guys we're looking at. Let's look at those prices. If Tony's coming in $30 cheaper than them, even though I like the other two guys, I think that's a big enough difference where maybe it makes sense to find some value there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I put these in yesterday. These are the prices of the cheapest rare card you can find on the market right over here. And we got Scotty sitting at $215, which makes complete sense. Like that's just totally fair. John Rahm $195. Finally, Rory. I actually won a Rory in a pack of mine, and I wanted to sell him this week, and now he's not playing. So that I have to hold on to him a little bit, unfortunately. But then there's this instant drop off that goes all the way down to Cantley at $100, who I think is he's the value card of the week. What do you think, Joel?
I mean, I love Cantley this week for sure. What you got to realize, and again, this is a spot where if you really like Cantley this week, this is a decision you got to make. His price is probably ahead of what let's say his baseline is, because this is a good course for him. He's got a good history. People like him this week. So, let's say Cantley's normal number is 90, or you're going to pay 100 for him this week. Now, if you believe in him, it's worth paying the $10, getting him line and letting him go out there and win you something. But those are the types of guys that you have to have some conviction on and go out and get.
Yeah, but now I'll change up a little bit there. I don't think his fair price is $100 though, as the cheapest card. Like I've got him here at like a 135 kind of a player, potentially 150. I think if you think about what Patrick Cantley does from a DFS perspective, he's one of the top 10 leaders on tour. Like he's inside the top 10 more often than he's outside the cut. It's just ridiculous what he gets up to. He makes so many birdies. He's so consistent. Now there's a lot of bad stigma around him, so maybe it's keeping his price down a little bit after the Snail Trail Masters Augusta debacle. But I think he's a great long-term DFS player, and I think he's going to win a tournament this year most likely. So if you just keep sliding him into your lineups, you might have a winner. So I like Cantley a lot.
Overall power rankings of every golfer, just in best golfers to Gav.
Yeah.
Cantley number 4.
Are you asking or are you saying?
I'm asking. I'm assuming it's Scheffler, Rahm, Rory, 1, 2, 3, and then would the next player be Cantley for you?
Correct. That would be the long-term side of things. If Rory's not playing this week, he's now the third best golfer from a short-term perspective. And I've actually got him as a second in my model for the actual tournament. He's like second, ahead of Rahm even on this course, which doesn't quite make sense. But the course history at Harbour Town is just ridiculous for him, right? So, and also I haven't updated the last 24 rounds since the Masters started, so that should help Rahm out a little bit. But I just think Patrick Cantley is probably, in my opinion, one of the most undervalued players out there. He provides you so much upside and security. At the same time, he's half the price of Scotty Scheffler. And he's not Scotty Scheffler, but he's half the price. He's not just like $50 less or anything like that. So that's just one little thing there. And then something that we need to talk about, dude, is I noticed Keegan Bradley has got the 4th most FedEx Cup points in what is that about? Like, that's nice. That's nice to know about. I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that's, as we've discussed in the past, like FedEx Cup points are really important, I think, from a long-term value of a card, because the more points you have, the more likely you are to make it into the final 30, which is when card values and payouts are going to be at a premium.
Yeah, and you heard, Keegan plays every week. Like, Keegan's always out there. Keegan's competitive. He's not getting us a ton of top 5s and 10s this year, but he is getting top 30s and 40s, and just every week he's accruing points. Every week he's out there, he's competing. And you're right, that adds up. A lot of these guys, and you heard Spieth saying he needs some rest. He's getting, tired, and these guys start to wear down. And so there's an advantage to have guys that are able to go out every week and play because, like you said, when those tournaments come at the end of the year, those cards are going to be much tougher to get.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing there too, because what I didn't realize is they brought the. So let's talk about, before we get into some more things, the pack drop that happened this week at the Masters. Because I know before we got in here, you mentioned that you're not a big fan of buying packs, and so am I. And I never realized I wanted to buy some packs, but then I realized I never had a green pass, which apparently you need. So I've had all my friends on the podcasts, and none of them told me you need a fake ID to get into the club. And I was sitting on the sidelines watching all my friends buying these packs. You can only buy 2 at a time. But I felt like they were pretty good value at the price that they were, especially getting 5 guys who were playing at the Masters, which is very different to the normal packs that you would be getting, where you could get a Joshua Creel. Like, there was no Joshua Creel involved in any of your rips this week. I landed up getting in line and missed out. All the packs were sold by the time I made it through the virtual queue. So talk to me about your pack rip experience this week, and whether or not you think it's a good idea to even have that green pass, or I know you mentioned you wanted to sell it.
Yeah, so 2 things going on here. The first is, with all the new cards released and the new set coming out, I do think that does cause a bit of a market adjustment. I think generally, with more access to cards, more cards being out there, the prices are coming down, because if you want to sell and get rid of your card, there's more people selling, more options to go out. So one of the things we even discussed was, I think we saw that there was lower tier edition guys that were going for less money. It's like, why are these prices? I think it's just, with more cards out there, people are just trying to sell and they're just price adjusting. I don't think it's strategic. I think it's just, there's a marketplace that's a little bit the wild, wild west, and you can go in and look at sales, and sometimes you see a guy go for like a ridiculously low price. Like, how did I miss that? Right? Or the other way around, you see a guy go for a ridiculously high price. Like, how did somebody buy him for that much? And a lot of times it's not a clear answer. Some people just don't know what they're doing, right? And sometimes it's just catching one of those people and taking advantage of them. But I think as the season continues and as more prize packs come out, new sets come out, there's going to be a price adjustment, right? I think that with more demand, it's going to change the pricing. So something to get used to. And I think to keep an eye on this week. And this week, it feels like there was a little bit of an adjustment, but not major. I feel like things went down a little bit, but it wasn't a huge shift. I think the shifts will get bigger as more and more cards come in.
Yes. And it's kind of nice to have 2 back-to-back elevated events where we got a very similar amount of stars in the field. There's double the amount of golfers this week, which is also going to decrease the amount of salary or price you can charge for a golfer, because last week you only had roughly how many? 52. We had 52 Rainmaker cards available. And you know what the funny thing was, is we had Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, and it was first with John Rahm, and then non-Rainmaker, and then it was Russell Henley, like the next best Rainmaker card that there was out there in T4, which was really nice to have John Rahm as your captain, because nobody could be getting second place points, because your first place captain was just banking so many points relative to the field, because the second best card was only getting fourth place points.
That's a good point. Yeah, and the interesting thing is that you have to keep in mind is the thought that we think about with DFS in terms of ownership and hey, Rahm's going to be chalky, so you don't really think about it that way, because listen, Rahm's one of the best players in the world. Everybody knows it. If you have a Rahm card going into a tournament and he's playing, you're playing that Rahm card, right? That's in there. So you can know the exact amount of Rahm cards that we play. Now, in what tournament? No, but you can narrow it down. Like if you're playing rare, there's probably 2, maybe 3 tournaments someone's going to enter a Rahm card in. So, do the math yourself and figure it out. But how much exposure of him will be out there. So you can figure out how you want to build or get different based on the number of cards that are out there.
Yeah. I'll just pull this up here just so we got it. Like, this was that lineup that finished 14th, and John Rahm was 24% owned in this what was it? It was 7.5K to first. And he was 6% captained as well. And I think that's where the game theory and things like that come into play, is who you choose as your captain. But also at the same time, you want the most reliable guy. So, you can either go with a guy that's not nearly as reliable as like a fifth dude and just hope he's your wild card that no one else has, or do you feel comfortable like going with a Cam Young or as your captain instead of like a Scotty Scheffler and a John Rahm?
There's a few different strategies that you can take there, right? One of the ideas to me would be, the first idea that came to my mind was, if you're overall going to be playing a lineup of like, superstars, studs, guys that a lot of people will be going after and playing, that's when I would probably want to get different in my captain spot, because my lineup's loaded anyway. So I'm good. I figured I should have good results. And even when you're captain, it's not getting different in playing, who's a random middle tier golfer?
Russell Henley.
Sure, I was going to say, Russell Henley was who I was going to say, but then he got fourth place. But
yeah, but he's also like, he's a perfect example. Like, imagine you had Russell Henley as your captain. That really differentiates you.
That really, exactly. And so the idea would be, if the thought is there's probably going to be 50 lineups of people that play a bunch of superstars, but mine's going to have Russell Henley in the captain, I still have superstars in my lineup. Yeah. Then that's how it's like, all right, well, if the superstar lineup comes through and Russell Henley has a big week, now I'm in a position to take down this tournament.
Yes. And then I think you smash the captain spot with the most chalky guy, like a John Rahm in the bankroll builder, because that's totally fine. The single entries where you're trying to take down that top tier prize, I think is a bit of a different ball game. And just to get back to the point that you mentioned earlier about the market trending and the prices going down, if you look at this column AW here, the only guys whose price didn't go down was Victor Hovland's. He was the only golfer who most likely was totally mispriced going into the Masters, men, and then played well, and I think his price has gone up. He's the only guy that was more than $26 that his price has gone up versus everyone else is going down. And I think that's got to do with the pack rips. And I also want to mention those approach packs that came out this week. I've been finding deals. Like, all of my guys that I had in that lineup were from that approach pack. I got like John Rahm's for like $150. I was finding really, really good deals on those packs. And I didn't know if I was getting a car that had some sort of mystery stipulation that had like a short lifespan, because I don't trust everything about ReignMakers just yet. We're still learning, aka Green Pass. But I didn't know if these guys, and I'm like, why is everyone selling these guys for much less? And the edition serial numbers were low because it's only 180 of them available.
I was the same way when it first came out. I was like, does this mean I can only play them at the Masters? Like, is that it? Is this like only specific tournaments for these cards? Like, I was a little confused. I do wish DraftKings helped have a more comprehensive explanation, right? We shouldn't have to ask ourselves. It should be, okay, this is coming out and it's clear they can be used in every tournament. Here's what makes them unique. Like, everything like that as it comes out would have been very helpful, because I did pump the brakes. I was like, if I can only use these, and if that was the case where you can only use them in limited tournaments, that would significantly hinder the value of the card, and therefore I wouldn't change how much I'd want to invest.
Yeah, if that was the case, wouldn't be doing this podcast. I'd be at the loan office, just busy figuring some stuff out, because things went a little rogue with the approach cards there and the value I found on some of them. But yeah, so let's talk about this week. Who are you thinking you're liking at the top of the board? Like, is there someone you're not going to be playing in particular? Or, I mean, I've got a Rahm, I've got a Scotty, I've got a Max, I've got a Cantley. I don't have a Xander, I don't have JT, I don't have Victor. So I'll be just playing those guys in general. My pool isn't nearly as big as yours. Do you have a majority of these golfers, or do you want to kind of hone in on a few that you like?
Well, what's interesting for me this week is my collection right now was heavily loaded for the Masters, right? I had my card set up for that tournament. Okay. In terms of tournament breakdown, I do think it's a much different setup here. And even though it's still a fully loaded field, I think, like, I loved Rahm and Scotty last week. I still think they're the two best golfers in the world. I don't love them as much here, right? And, I think that's more relevant for DFS purposes, right? Because they're so expensive, and like you can build a lineup on daily fantasy without them much easier. In this, right, that's what makes it challenging. If you have a Rahm and Scheffler card, right, and you're putting them in any tournament, right, you're not going to not play them in your main lineup. They're two of the best golfers in the world. However, like I don't think this is their ideal course fits for their game. So now I'm contemplating: am I going to sell Rahm Scheffler, refinagle my lineups for something more optimal this week, or do I hang on to them, just build a different type of lineup, or do I put them in like you did, a more conservative tournament? Don't have to go for maybe a top heavy one, and just figure they'll play well, cash, and move on to next week. So I'm still kind of working through my strategy of with what I have, what's the best approach?
I think that's a great point that you put there is if you're not comfortable with a really top tier guy this week, bankroll build him. You've got 3 of those lineups you can use him in, put him in one of them. And I think that's totally fine. I do think it's a great week to not have them as your captain if you're going to put them in a single entry. I mean, there's definitely going to be because we knew going into Augusta, like you guys told me last week. And I'm so happy that you guys discussed that with me because a different tournament depends on who you want to play. Like Augusta, we saw that leaderboard, Joel, just stacked, outside of Russell Henley. But everyone else I'm giving Russell some crap, but it was what you saw is what you were going to get. There was some cut casualties, but at the end of the day, we had Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantley, Xander, Colin, everyone just inside the top 20 like they should have been. And it was, outside of Max. So this week, let's talk about Max a little bit because he's coming off a really poor performance like we were chatting about in the lobby. And I don't think he's playing bad golf. I just think Augusta's his bugaboo. To me, he's the most human of the superstars that there are. And I feel like he still gets a little overwhelmed walking down Magnolia Lane.
I think that's fair. There's a few factors to consider with Max right now. One, going into the Masters, right? I was picking him as thinking, listen, he didn't have the Masters results. But to me, going into that tournament, he was in the top 5 golfers in the world. Top 5 guys I wanted to play in form and skill, everything like that. I thought that form and skill would outweigh his previous Masters results, and he'd go out and have a good week. Maybe it is the course that doesn't suit his eye. Maybe that maybe caused him to struggle. Let's also not think the fact they put in a full-blown storm, and that could have affected him, right? He didn't get great conditions.
Yeah.
And it does feel a little bit like people are disappointed. And to me, like his price came way down on DFS. I haven't heard his name mentioned, from Saturday on, really, right? He was kind of like forgotten about. And I feel like there might be an over-adjustment of Max maybe just not having a great week in Augusta. And now let him come back here. It's only been 1 week, he's probably still one of the best golfers in the world. This is a course that seems to suit his game a little bit better, probably. And I think I will. I like Max this week.
I think I do too. And I have a lot of him, so I'm going to be loading him up. I might even make him a captain in one of them and just see how it goes. And from a long-term perspective, Max has got 1,800 FedEx Cup points. So I think this podcast, we're going to mention FedEx Cup points quite a lot because I think it's important. He's guaranteed basically to make it to the final 30. He doesn't have to play any of the 2 events leading up, and he's locked in. You're going to have Max for the whole season. And I think that's important to note. I think his price is going to, it's sitting at, he went down $20. So that's quite, you're getting quite a nice discount there. I think the hype going into Augusta was a little bit there for Max. Another guy I want to mention is Colin Morikawa. I know you like Colin a lot, Joel, and I like him in majors, which is why I grabbed him for last week. But this golf course seems to suit his game. If you think about accuracy off the tee, exceptional iron play, maybe around the greens is a little sketchy, but the 2 ball striking things that you're looking for at this golf course, like length is not that big of a deal at all. Colin is super accurate, and he's the best iron player in the world. He's $69 as the cheapest rare card on the market right now.
And Colin, don't look now, but Colin's been making putts. If we're gonna have a Colin Morikawa who can make putts, then the sky is the limit, because that's been his downfall, right? He's always been the amazing ball striker, gets it there, and he loses strokes on the greens. He's been less. He's not. It's hard to imagine him being a great putter. But even if he just gains a little bit putting, right, that's enough. As long as he's not losing strokes putting, and his ball striking is what we've seen it be, where it can lap the field and he crushes people and he's killing the ball, then Colin can end up having one of those seasons like we've seen, like, I think Colin really thrives on difficult courses because typically it neutralizes putting so hard anyway that it doesn't really matter that he's not making putts. But if he starts making putts, then all of a sudden he can start competing on any type of course. And, you know, what I've seen with Colin historically is he'll have those weeks on those difficult courses where he'll get you that top 5, he'll win the tournament. And then, like, he'll go to him the next week and you'll be like, oh, Colin's great, right? I want more Colin in my lineup. And they'll give you like a 26. And you're like, how Colin not really get anywhere near there? And I think that's what's going to start changing. I think we're going to start seeing Colin more consistently top 10, top 15, which would then mean at this price, it's a steal.
Yeah. And the lights came on as you were mentioning that behind you. I think, bing, this week, Colin Morikawa, a light bulb moment. $69, you know, for a cheapest rare out there. To me, if you want to compare him to like Rory, who's $150, you know, like, I know it's Rory, but that's half the price of a Rory McIlroy, and I think Colin's not half the value of a Rory. Let's
just look at this board that you're looking at right now. Colin Morikawa should not be $20 cheaper than Justin Thomas, $10 cheaper than Tony Finau. You know, he's right in that range. If you just look at all these guys, and these are all your, you know, let's call them tier 2 golfers, Colin Morikawa is right in that mix. The fact that you get him way cheaper than everyone else tells me that's the value to go get.
Yeah, I love him. And then in a very similar vein, Tom Kim at $45 is, to me, I think I'm willing to just grab 1 or 2 of him this week because. And again, this is just rare. This is the range that I'm in. I know you got a few elites. I know that people listening might have. There's guys that tweet at me that have legendaries. You know, like, the beauty of this is we're speaking about a golfer at a certain price, but that price reflects throughout the different rarities. And you can buy a core. I don't know what the cores are of Tom Kim. I'm assuming like $10 or like $5 or whatever. So there's a price range for everyone. If you want to get involved, I don't think you have to drop $200, $800 on a lineup. You know, you can easily get in at the core level, $50, you know, kind of thing. If you avoid a Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, those guys are a little more expensive. But again, just to mention that as well, if you don't want to spend $215 on a Scotty Scheffler this week, you can go buy a core card that's Scotty Scheffler. And remember, in rare, you get 1 core that you can throw in your lineup. In the elite tier, you can get, what is it, three rares and 2 elites? No, 3 elites and 2 rares. Yes. So you can always mix and match your favorite golfers into these different lineups at a cheaper price. They just can't be your captain, obviously. So just going to repeat that again. If you're watching for the first time about ReignMakers, I know it's a new concept. So want to share that with you guys. Like, there's ways to jip the system a little bit, you know. And I had a Scotty Scheffler in that lineup that landed up doing pretty well, and he was a core. So
I would even go on to say, you should be doing that. If you're not doing that, you're at a disadvantage. Because if you're playing a rare lineup and your 1 core guy isn't one of your best 2 golfers, you're probably doing something wrong because they're so much more affordable. You should be able to go out and get one of the guys you want in the core and just have them in your lineup, right? And I totally understand if you want your best player to be your captain, fine. But your best player in the captain spot, your second best player should at least be a core guy because it should be someone you just go out and get. It's way more affordable to put in your lineup. And everyone else is doing that, right? That is the strategy that's known. So that is definitely something, if you're going to put out a competitive lineup, you should have one of your elite best players be the tier low.
Correct. Now, I have a question for you regarding that, though. What is your threshold or your thought process about, because I was looking, and I'm going to pull this up one more time, just so we can like take a look at the points, because there were some close ties. And remember the serial number, this tiebreaker here is the number of the serial counts on each card combined. And the guy with the lowest count in a tiebreaker just takes that points, like that takes that prize money.
Well, hold on. Were they close or were they actual ties? Because being close and being tied, I don't see the ties. I just see they're close to being tied.
Yes, I know. There was like a 20.25 points between a tie with these guys. You know, like there's 3 guys sitting at 452 to 430, right? Within half a point of each other. So it can get close. And at the top here, it's $100 per a position change.
Yeah.
So
here's where I break down. They're not tied though. And that's where it's like,
they aren't.
I don't think I want to go spend a whole bunch of extra money to get the lower tiers. Because if you think about the Masters, like you said, there was what, 50 cards that were eligible to be played.
Mhm.
That's pretty small. That's probably as small as it's going to get all season. Like, there's not going to be too many tournaments with less than 50 until we get to the FedEx Cup at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so this is the week, and we also knew that like the superstars rise to the top of the Masters, so everyone would be playing loaded lineups. So if there was a week for ties and duplicates, it was this week, and it didn't happen, right? Just be like even close with point halfway here, halfway there weren't tied. So to me, I just think, is it possible you hit a tie? Of course it's possible, but I think it's so rare for you to actually have someone completely duplicate your lineup and have an exact tie that I wouldn't overly worry about the rarity numbers.
I'm glad I asked that question because it was something I was contemplating, and it makes a lot of sense too, you know. But if you're gonna just have to spend $5 extra on a guy that you can get a few hundred serial numbers less than, go for that. You know, like don't just go and buy the cheapest all the time, you know. But
and I'll add the tournament matters, right? Like if there ends up, if you know, we mentioned Mexico earlier in the show. If in Mexico there ends up being 5 all-stars and then a bunch of nobodies, and everyone's going to play those guys, then yeah, it's probably going to matter then because everyone's going to have the same idea, and that would be obvious, right? But you look at this field, there's enough talent spread out here where I wouldn't be overly concerned about ties.
Correct. And if you're throwing in a really like a one random guy, if you're really concerned about your edition count, throw in a contrarian golfer like a Russell Henley, you know, because then your points are most likely going to be completely different than anyone else's anyway, because there's no dupes, there's none of that. So we'll see, you know. But yeah, you're so right. Like you always fear the tie, but it doesn't ever really happen, you know. And when it does, you're most likely just going to tie for like 100th place anyway. So that's an interesting thing there. I love Tom Kim this week. I think he's a nice little value at $45. And then Cameron Young, in my opinion, Joel, is someone who I'm buying as much as I can right now while he's under $100. He can easily be a top 5 golfer in the world. If you think about Max Homa, like, what is the difference between Cameron Young and Max Homa apart from winning? You know, like that's the thing with Cam Young is he just hasn't won yet. But man, if he wins one tournament, watch the hell out.
No, I totally agree. And listen, in Cameron Young's defense, he's very young. Like, he hasn't been doing this all that long. Give him some time. It takes a little bit of time to get in. He's competing. He's in these tournaments. If it wasn't for his meltdown was in the storm. Yeah. If he didn't play in the storm, he might have been there on Sunday in the Masters and been right in it. So I'm with you. And it's Tom Kim and Cameron. Those are the types of guys where, you might look back at buying them now and be like, wow, I got a steal on them 2 months from now when they're playing as 2 of the top 5 guys or what have you. Cameron more likely, but I think Tom Kim too. I think Tom Kim is a guy who we haven't seen his best golf yet this season. And I think we saw him last year get hot at the end of the year and he was, top 10ing left and right. I think he's going to have a run like that coming up. He played well at the Masters. Maybe that form is starting to come around. And, if he goes out this week and gets a top 10, that price, that $45 price is going up, right away. So now's the time to, if you like him, if you believe in him, now's the time to invest.
Yep. And this course suits him so well. He hit all 18 or all 14 fairways last week in round 4 at Augusta, and now goes to a golf course where you need to be pretty accurate off the tee, and his distance isn't going to be nearly a disadvantage to him this week. And I think there's tournaments that I think propel or catapult or trampoline golfers into form. Like if you look at a match play, if you look at a major, there's certain events that if a golfer plays, even just finishes inside the top 15, top 10, that they haven't had the best season so far, but they have a good showing in a big event. I like to play them the next week because I feel like their confidence is just brimming. They never had that mental intensity of having to like try win the tournament, but their confidence is brimming. The enthusiasm's there. That I feel like they're just riding the good waves. Look at Corey Connors. I know he never made it out of the group stages, but he played pretty well at match play. And then all of a sudden, bang, wins, So what are your thoughts on that, on like picking guys that played really well in a major the week before?
It's a good point, right? It's a mentality thing. Because it's a thin line because most people don't want to play the winner, right? If you win it, like you're not going to win back to back. You go, well,
Right.
and I get that, right? Because you're doing a lot of interviews, you're celebrating. You're probably not as focused to go out and get another win after you just won a big event. But the guy who finished like sixth, who's playing great golf, who just missed it, he still has an itch and motivation to go back out next week. I'm like, my game's in good shape. I'm right there. I'm on the precipice. I got to go out and execute next year. I'm going to get my win. And like, you want to find that type of motivation of the guy's going to come out and excel. And so I think you're right. Like that's the type of form. And again, it's a thin line. You really got to find those guys in that right spot. But I think what you said makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking of that person, yes, Russell Henley. And now look, is Russell Henley going to go ahead and do that again? We don't know, but he's playing some better golf now. And this golf course, you'd imagine, actually suits him better than Augusta with just, he's so accurate off the tee and his iron play is not so good. $22 right now. You can get yourself a Russell Henley. We just finished fourth at the major last week and goes to a golf course that really suits his game. And then Matt Kuchar, I want to talk about him a little bit at $28 is to me just it's a value play. I mean, he's going to be someone I buy a $28 card for and throw him in a bankroll builder as well, because I don't think Matt Kuchar is going to win the tournament. And I want to have a guy that can win a tournament for me in my single entry lineups and my big takedown ones. But Matt Kuchar at $28 to win $100 bankroll builder, like I feel like that's a fair investment on that front.
That makes sense. And this is one of those where, I'll be honest, I normally do not like Matt Kuchar, right? But this week, he makes a lot of sense, right? The combination of this course history here, he obviously likes this course. He's got an incredible history playing here. 2, you look at his recent form, it's really good, right? So you get a guy playing well, going into a course that he really likes, right? That's the type of guy that you're looking for. Get him for under $30, super good value. Again, you don't need Matt Kuchar to go out and win the tournament. If he gets you 12th place, that is great for the $30 card that you have with Matt Kuchar.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm just going to rattle off some more value guys that I'm kind of liking. From a long-term perspective, Tyrrell Hatton, Joel, is someone that's really interesting to me. His card right now for Tyrrell, $42 for Tyrrell Hatton. Like, he's one of the best golfers in the world. He's $42. And I know he didn't play well at the Valero, and the Augusta's never. It's the worst golf course in the world, according to Tyrrell. So he's never going to play well there. But I think he's got a chance to finish in. I mean, he played well at the Players. I think a lot of long irons in this golf course, 175 to 200 yard ranges. A quarter of the shots come from that range this week. He's a really good long iron player. $42.
Tyrrell Hatton's also the type of guy that there will be tournaments coming up, over the summer where he's top 3 guy in the tournament. Like he plays those tournaments. We're not like this is a loaded field, right? But there's going to be a tournament where it's like, like we said before, it's going to be like Finau, Hatton, and Keegan Bradley, and those are going to be the top range, right? And that's a tournament where before that tournament, if this price is $42 now, then it's going to be 80 or 60, right? Or something way inflated. So that's one where you could feel comfortable. I think you buy him now. I think it's hard to imagine that price going down at 42.
Yeah.
And then I think you'll have value throughout the year to use them. If you want to sell them before one of those later tournaments, make some money on it, you can.
Exactly. He was $150 at the Valero. I should have sold him then. I tried to sell him for $200. I was being so greedy. And that's the problem. So before we get into JT Poston, I want to ask you about your philosophy about selling cards, because I haven't done a great job of that yet. I feel like I get too greedy. I want to get too much money back for my bang in the buck. And I land up overpricing my guys instead of just kind of either just getting rid of them at the same price I got them for, or just a little bit of a profit, So talk to me about what you've done on the sales side of things.
So my flaw is similar to yours. And I don't even overlist them. I just don't list them. I look at the price that they're going for, and I'm like, I think I can get better later in the year, and I wait, which is maybe a flaw because the prices might just keep going down, right? And maybe I won't be able to get better later in the year. So, you can look, right? When I really want to sell a card, I price aggressively. I'm going to look at what they're being sold for. I'm coming $10 under the lowest price, and now I have the most attractive card for you to go buy. I'm trying to get my card sold. If I don't want to sell them for the price $10 less than what's already out there, I'm not even listing him. because I don't want to get caught, which it's already, you mentioned happened to you, happened to me, where I left the guy out there, I forgot to take him out, played him, someone bought him while I was playing, lineup ruined, right? So
Yeah.
I'm like, if I have a guy listed, I want him to sell. I am listing him to sell, and I want him to go. I'm going at the lowest price. Otherwise, I'm not listing him.
That is perfect advice, I think, and it's the safest advice too. It doesn't result in heartbreak. You know what you're going to get. Your order's coming through. You're not going to get extra pickles or extra onions. It's just buying a burger with the bun and butter. So I'm fine with that strategy too. And if you're going to get rid of a guy, you're most likely going to get rid of him because A, he's just not of value to you anymore, so you might as well just dump him now. Or B, he's actually of value. So you're still going to be you're either cutting your losses hardcore or you're making profit and just making sure you can secure that profit versus being greedy.
And there's two thoughts of process with that, right? If it's a average to below average golfer, those are the ones that you just, when you're ready to get rid of them, get you whatever you can get and move on. If it's a good golfer, try not to sell low, right? Don't sell somebody after they just came off a bad tournament and you're going to get pennies on the dollar, right? Like, for example, one example we talked about before on the show is Matt Fitzpatrick, where he hadn't been playing well. I didn't like his form of the game. I had a few Fitzpatrick cards, and I was like, should I just sell him? He's not going to help me. But I said, no, I do think he's going to return to form. He'll start playing. He actually played pretty decently at the Masters. If he has another good week this week, now all of a sudden I think that Matthew Fitzpatrick price will be up to 65 or 70. At that point, now I'm making money back on him. So if I had sold him 2 weeks ago for 35, what a waste, right? That wouldn't have made me any money. So if it's a good golfer, the odds are they're not going to be, if they haven't been playing well right now, they're probably not going to be bad all year. Give them a couple weeks, let them return some form, then sell them.
Bang. I love it. That makes the most sense in the world to me, Joel. I want to mention one or two more guys down at the bottom, and then we can kind of jump out of here and just chat about whatever else we want. But Brendan Todd to me at $13.99 is, I've got him here sitting, pretty high up in my model, and he's one of these guys. He was sitting so nicely going into the Valero and just pooped the bed over the weekend. And now he's $13.99. He's like halved in price. So I think he's a great buy. I don't see his price getting much lower than that either. He's a really solid golfer. And around this kind of a golf course, I think Harbour Town suits Brendan Todd really nicely. So we could see that price go up after a little while of him playing nicely. Seamus Power is another guy I'm a big fan of. It's not telling me we've got as much value as we'd like over here, but $29.99 for a guy that Seamus made the cut again at Augusta. Didn't quite play amazingly over the weekend, but he's a good major player. So he's going to show up in these major events and he's going to win the Bermuda again kind of thing. So he's going to play in these crappy events and be a really good player in those, and then just a solid contrarian play in the majors and bigger events.
Seamus is the type of guy that I would just buy, stick in my bankroll builders every week. And he's always consistent. He makes cuts. Like, may not get you all the top 10s, but he's consistent, right? And that consistency should get your bankroll builders constantly just paying you off.
Seamus, Tony, Sungjae, bang. You got your core bankroll builder squad right there. It's going to be in the rare markets costing you less than $200 to get those three guys together. One bankroll payout pays $100 in a week. So you can easily make that money up over the course of a month if those guys play nicely. So another guy I want to mention, especially because of the FedEx Cup points, is Kurt Kitayama at $22.99. He's a long-term player I like. You can grab him now. He's won a tournament at the API. He's also a very good long iron player around Harbour Town. He's not going to be hitting, because we know the driver's wacko. Like, he can't hit a driver anywhere. But he hits a 3-iron, 240, 250 yards kind of thing. Very straight. And that's what you need exactly around Harbour Town. Got a tidy short game. He's $22.99. And he's one of the guys that I think I might land up throwing into a lineup who's won a tournament. He's comfortable being in contention, played nicely at the match play. I'm not taking into account what happened at the Masters, his first appearance, for Kurt. Let's go. I like Kurt Kitayama this week.
I think it's an interesting call. He's been playing well. He's trending in the right direction. For a cheaper, lower tier guy, I think he's a guy that definitely possesses some upside.
Yeah. And then finally, I want to mention Sahith Theegala. He's at $42 right now. I've got a number 2 edition Sahith Theegala, which I'm very proud of. And I'm hoping we saw what he can do. Like, if you just slide him into those, he's not a bankroll builder guy. He's a put him in your big single entries, your big 150 maxes or whatever, to try and take it down, because he's going to pop and burst like multiple times during a tournament, multiple times during a year. We saw all of this happen, and then he goes and shoots one of the rounds of the day on Sunday, a la Tiger Woods from 16. Like, he's got the skill, but he dropped his golf club on like 5 follow-throughs that round and still shot -6. So he's all over the place. I don't think this golf course suits him very nicely, and I think that's why his price has gone a little bit down. He just finished 9th at Augusta in his debut. So he's going to be a big, big guy I like.
And he's not a stranger to top 10. I mean, just look, it's like every third tournament he top 10. So
yes.
He's, he gets those weeks where he plays really well. He's the type of guy where, you get one of those like superstar lineups and you throw him in as your 5th, where like it won't be the typical 5th guy, but he has the upside to make a superstar lineup, take down a tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's just got so much upside. If you're looking at a guy that can just achieve his potential and just absolutely just crush what he's capable of. And it's only his 2nd year on the PGA Tour. He's the 29th ranked golfer in the world. The broadcast, no laying up, we're all talking about, oh, this is such an important T12 for Sahith so he can make it back to Augusta next year. Like, what do you guys, is he just going to fall off the face of the earth over the next 12 months? Like, this guy is very good. He's going to make it into Augusta just because of his world ranking next year this time. Like, he might have won a tournament by then and be inside the top 10 in the world. Like, that is his potential. I don't see him going that backwards.
I agree. I think this is a guy, I don't quite have him top 10, but top 20, top 25, I think that's where he is. I mean, it is hard to top 10 golf tournaments. The amount of top 10s he has already just this season is eye-opening, right? It's hard to do that. So, and like you said, this isn't a guy that's been around that just got hot for a little bit. Like, this is a young up-and-comer. He's just getting better, right? And so I think we could look at Theegala, a year from now and then maybe be talking about him being top 10. I think that's a real possibility. So I think there's some similarities, I think, even to the trajectory we saw Homa, right? We saw Homa play really well, get good, get better, and then all of a sudden, boom, now he's one of the top guys, right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of that in Theegala too.
Yeah. A little more inconsistent, but that's what you need in order to win a golf tournament, is just pop, go in 5 shots behind on a Sunday and have a round like that at a normal tournament. I think you're going to absolutely, and maybe that's what he needs, just to win one from like 10 pairings ahead kind of thing, and just get it done before he even realizes he's won a tournament, and then get that under his belt. And I think the same thing with Cam Smith. Cam Young, to just get those under their belt. Once they've cracked that winner's circle, it's going to be so fun to watch them, man. So, Joel?
I do think Theegala's going to win the tournament this year. It's probably going to be one of those, like we said, the theme of the show, a Mexico tournament or something where it's like not as many of the superstars. It'll be his time, but I think Theegala's getting the win this year.
Yes, he seems like if he goes to Mexico, baby, oh my God, because that's a golf course that I think can suit his game quite nicely too. Is there anything else you want to chat about? I know I kind of just rambled about some guys I liked, but is there any parting words you want to share? Is there any like sleeper dude that you want to mention? Is there anything?
Well, you started to mention, I'll just mention because we didn't quite get there. JT Poston.
Yes.
JT Poston's playing really good golf, and he loves this golf course. Loves it. And if you just look at his prior stats, he is getting an absurd amount of strokes putting here. So he does know how to putt on these greens. His ball striking has been good. It's a good marriage of good form, good history. He's kind of like Kuchar, but even the cheaper version. So he's another one of those guys that if you can get your hands on him this week, he makes a lot of sense. Yep.
I grabbed myself 2 JTs last night, and he's an outright for me at 100-1. So I think he's got a great chance to win this thing. I think 4 top 10s. He's got the second best course history in this field, out behind Patrick Cantley, who's another outright I have. So I'm just going course history narrative this week. This golf course is very course history heavy. And it's like very close to being the second or third highest correlation in course history outside of Augusta. So lots to like about this golf course. Play those horse courses, and especially in ReignMakers, I feel like depending on course history, at course history dependent courses can really provide you that element of safety. You know what you guys are going to be giving you. It provides a nice blueprint. So I love JT Poston this week, man.
And then the other nice thing about that with ReignMakers is those guys that will probably end up being chalky in DFS for history. Again, that doesn't matter as much in ReignMakers because there's only so many cards out there that are going to be played. So it's another way to find that edge.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Joel, another one in the books, man. Let's have a good week this week. Let's throw some good ballsy captains in there and see if we can take down a tournament. I think it's going to be a fun week, and it's a deluxe package event. So the max payouts the same as Augusta last week.
Yeah, and there's going to be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Hangover from the Masters, right? Everyone's the big tournament, and now it's the next week, and it doesn't feel as obviously grand as the Masters. But like you said, same payout. This is still a loaded field. Yeah. Take advantage of the hangover. People aren't paying as much attention this week as they did last week as of the Masters. It's a great week to go and attack.
Absolutely. Awesome sauce, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I saw we had a few guys in here. If you guys ever want to drop some questions in the chat, feel free to do that, or reach out to me at the Model Maniac or my main man Joel at Draftmaster Flex or Draftmaster Flex, depending what nation you are from and what languages you like to listen to. But we always appreciate you guys tuning in to us. The show's going to start growing. I love what we're doing, Joel. We'll be back again next week even? I don't think it's the Zurich next week, is it? So if there's a proper golf tournament tomorrow, next week, we will be back. If not, we probably won't. We're not going to be doing ReignMakers for the Zurich, I don't think, unless is there even a Zurich ReignMakers? I doubt it, right? So whatever. We'll keep you posted. Pay attention to Twitter. Horrible closing call here, but I'll be doing my solo show tomorrow night at 7 Eastern. So tune in for that, folks. And then at 9 Eastern, we've got Draft Master Flex and his gang at the Win Daily Crew doing the Draft Cast, which is also one of my favorite podcasts in the world. And you get to draft your own fantasy team there in DFS, and it's a great time. So awesome sauce. I've been trying to end this podcast for the last 2 minutes, but I'm going to hit the button now. Catch you guys later.